Most of what we see from NBA players is all on the court, but more and more today with social media and news stories, we started hearing more about how players are off the court. And through that, it's given us a pretty good idea of who these basketball players really are as people. Some good, some bad, but there's a few that stand out more than others as the nicest NBA players of all time. So that's what we're looking at today. And we're starting first with Yao Ming. Now, Yao was the type of guy that always had a smile on his face. He would always play for his team's success, and even though at one point he was one of the most popular players in the entire league and consistently put up big numbers and made all-star teams, he stayed as one of the most humble players out there. Plus, Yao was brought up in China. It was where he was born and raised until he was 17. And that's a country where you're taught to be respectful, to stay to yourself, and to not really stand out too much. Yao Ming definitely stood out, but he was successful in doing the other two. And even when a guy like Shaq would try to say things about him in the media or try to pick small fights with him, Yao Ming was one of the very few players who just laughed it off. And to prove how nice and respectful he was, he once said in an interview that he didn't like dunking on people because he felt it was too disrespectful. So it doesn't get much better than that. Then there's Manute Bol. And while we don't have too much insight into too many personal stories of Manute Bol and the kind of guy that he actually was, we can only base it off of what we do know, and that's the fact that he was known as a gentle giant that always took care of his home country, Sudan, like they were all his family. Manute would spend his offseason revisiting his hometown, and he made roughly $7 million throughout his NBA career. But for the most part, just lived like a normal guy, because he gave mostly all that money back to Sudan. And even after he ran out of money, he found other ways to earn money, not to keep for himself, but to continue to give back to his country. Like when he signed to play for a minor league hockey team, even though he didn't know how to skate, and when he became a horse jockey, both as publicity stunts for money. Not just giving a lot of money to charities doesn't instantly make you a good guy, but it seemed different with Manute. And that combined with the limited amount of stories out there that say he was a great person, in my mind made him a great fit for this list. Including Steph Curry in this video probably doesn't need much explanation, but I'll give it anyways. There have been very few athletes in the history of sports who have been at the top of their sport while being as universally loved as Steph Curry has. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Giannis, Magic Johnson, they all had their critics and haters, but Curry doesn't really have too many. He's a true family man. He runs basketball camps year round, and it's not like he does it for the money because he doesn't need it. He has his own charity built towards helping feed families in the local area, and even though he's one of the most talented and highest paid athletes on the planet, he's always remained humble, which was why it was so surprising when this clip came out last year of him losing his cool, and we've never seen that side of him. His past coaches and teammates never had a bad word to say about him, and he's known for spending time with fans and interacting with them more than your average NBA star would. There's a reason Stephen Curry is the #1 role model in the NBA. Mike Conley's not as popular, but he's another guy that should be a role model. And first off, the most valuable stat here regarding Mike Conley is the fact that in his entire career, he's had 0 technical fouls, multiple deep playoff runs playing against tough competition, several heated moments, and he's never gotten a temper or said anything too out of line. And that's pretty impressive, and we combine that with another stat, which is the fact that Conley's won 3 NBA sportsmanship awards, which is tied with Grant Hill for most in NBA history. So put both those stats together, and it's no coincidence why he ends up here. But the fact that many of his former teammates and coaches have described him as a class act and one of the nicest players in the NBA really shows why he made the list. Then we have Zion Williamson, and listen, I don't know if we're still calling Zion an NBA player at this point, but if we are, he definitely seems like one of the nicest out there. From the fact that he's humble and never even really believed he'd make it to the NBA until he grew in size, and his stepfather convinced him that he would one day be a first overall pick, to crying when he was drafted, to saying that he'll never complain to refs, to him being one of the first to come out and say he was going to pay for all the arena workers' pay for 30 days when everything shut down. It gives you a sense that he was raised right, and at times he gives off the feeling that he just feels lucky to be in the league. So his career's been short and it may be over sooner than expected, but as of right now, I feel like he's still one of the nicest players we've ever seen. Steven Adams is another one of those players. He has the ability to be one of the most intimidating guys on the court, but he always has a smile on his face, and even though he has the looks of Aquaman and the strength of Hulk, he uses his powers for good and not evil. He's constantly making highlight reels for breaking up fights or missing out on a play so he can catch an opponent out of midair to save them from getting hurt. These are just some of the reasons he's a fan favorite. Another is the fact that for the most part, fans in general are a real good judge of character, and I think that's the case with Steve. With Tim Duncan, just by the fact that he was a soft-spoken, quiet guy that never trash talked, got into any fights, and was respected by all his peers, it's easy for us to all assume Duncan was a nice guy on and off the court. But there's 3 stories that stand out most about him. The first comes from Draymond Green, who once said he was standing at the free throw line, started talking trash to Tim, and Duncan just stared him down and didn't say a word. And that was the last time Draymond ever tried trash talking Tim Duncan. Duncan would never talk trash because he was above it, and when Draymond tried to do it to him, he let him know as nicely as possible that he wasn't having it. He's even so nice that instead of trash talking, Eton Thomas said Tim gave him pointers mid-game once. He said he put a move on Duncan one game and Tim blocked it, so they're running back up the court and Tim says, "That was a good move, but maybe get more into my body next time so I can't block it." So the next time down the court, Eton makes the changes, makes the shot, and Tim says, "Great work, keep it up," which is just weird, but also shows how little of a threat he actually thought he was. And the last story comes from Steven Adams, who was playing rough on Duncan one game. Then in the third quarter, they were standing around, and he started talking to Steve and asking him how him and his family were. And Steve said he was so nice that he stopped playing rough on him and didn't even notice. But then Duncan put up 20 in the second half. Jrue Holiday lands here as he made headlines twice throughout his career for off-court action. In 2019, he left basketball indefinitely to be with his wife while she had a brain tumor, and they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know how long he would be out, but he dropped everything to be with her. Then in 2020, he pledged the rest of his salary, which was $5.3 million to his charity and to helping black-owned businesses get through the pandemic. His teammates also often call him a team leader in the locker room. And more often than not, every time you watch a Bucks game, there's some kind of reference to the type of guy that Jrue is and the personality he has. It's hard to argue that there's many guys much nicer in the NBA than Jrue Holiday. Boban Marjanovic could make one though, because he may be one of the nicest and kind-hearted giants in NBA history. On and off the court, he's said to have never had a bad day and always lifts the spirits of everyone around him. He's always in a good mood and trying to play around with his teammates. We've seen the connection him and Tobias Harris had and what him and Luka have today. Even a guy like Marcus Morris, who had problems with Luka and Nikola Jokic, said that Boban is the nicest guy he ever met. While Greg Popovich said, "You couldn't ask for a better professional or a better teammate." And Mark Cuban saying, "When you meet him, he's immediately your best friend." And his kindness even dates back to right after his rookie season, where the Spurs could only offer him a $3 million contract. But the Pistons reached out with a $21 million 3-year deal, and he told Popovich that he wanted to stay with the Spurs and take their offer because he would feel bad for leaving. But Popovich wouldn't let him resign there and turned down that kind of money. Kemba Walker has been the recipient of the NBA Sportsmanship Award 2 years in a row, once in 2018 and again in 2019. And while in Charlotte, he was majorly involved with the community. He even mentored 4 young kids and promised them that he would be their friend and mentor for life. So in his first game back to Charlotte after leaving the Boston Celtics, those 4 were all there. While in that game, the Hornets coach said, "I love and miss that guy." Even Cody Zeller wore shoes that said, "We miss you, Kemba." He's been nominated for the NBA Cares Community Assist Award in the past, and to anyone that still has doubts that Kemba Walker is as nice as they get, it really showed the type of guy that he was when the Knicks decided to sit him out all those games. And he didn't complain, didn't say anything to the media, and accepted what would be best for the team. And that alone right there takes a lot of unselfishness for someone to do. For Steve Nash, I'll be honest, I really don't have any stories about why Steve Nash is a nice guy, or one of the nicest in the entire history of the NBA, but I just feel like he's a good dude. And everywhere I looked online for nicest NBA players, he was one of the first names that would always come up. I mean, he was even named one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2006. But then finally we have Pau Gasol. Nobody could find any room to argue the fact that Pau Gasol is as great as they come. Even he said that he's so nice people often take advantage of it, and that it was hard for him to be as nice as he was while in the NBA back when he played. I mean, for Kobe Bryant to have respected and loved Pau as much as he did, you know he had to have just been as nice and sensitive of a guy as possible. Because Kobe didn't really show that friendly side to anyone on the court, but you can see that he respected Gasol in a much different way than most. Plus, it's been nice to see him kind of looking after Vanessa and Kobe's family since everything went down. Who's your vote for overall nicest NBA player? Comment and let me know, and I'm out.